Good morning, friends. Today I am going to take this session on the protected area networks. Guys, we are dealing the biodiversity stream. Okay. So in the biodiversity stream, we have done with the few topics of the biodiversity. Like we have done with the importance of the biodiversity in chapter 1 of our the biodiversity, and after that we have seen the that is the Indian biodiversity, and after Indian biodiversity we have seen the plant diversity, animal diversity, wildlife protection act, that is the scheduled animals listed in the wildlife protection act. So after seeing all those things, we are done with the things of the which is of the nation biodiversity importance. Now we are going to see its conservation measures. So we are having the biodiversity. So what are the initiatives that we are having to conserve the biodiversity? The topic we are going to take in this session. Okay. So the topic for today's discussion is the protected area networks. Protected area networks. Protected area network. Guys, if you see, the topic itself explains that it is the protected area. It is the protected area network. So it is the network of the protected areas. It is the network of the protected areas. So in this chapter we are going to see what are the different protected areas or the different type of initiatives with respect to national or the global that we are having to conserve the biodiversity. To conserve the biodiversity. All those topics that we are going to discuss here, guys. Okay, it's very must. So protection is required, guys. Protection is required. Even this protection initiated from a bit. So we protect our things, each and everyone, like our homes, our land, our office, our property, everything. In the same manner, we need to protect our biodiversity. It is our individual's role to protect the biodiversity. Why? Because biodiversity is going to helpful a lot, is going to provide a lot of resources for our benefits. So we need to conserve the biodiversities. That's why we have a protected area network. So what are the table of content that we are going to see in this chapter that I am going to take here, guys? So in this we are going to see that is two type of initiatives, that is the national initiative and the global initiative. So the first topic that I am going to take is the protected areas. Protected areas. So what are the protected areas? What exactly is the protected areas? So if you see in this, I am going to take first as a national importance. National initiative. National initiative. So in the national initiative we are going to say what are the protected areas. After we are seeing the wildlife sanctuaries and national parks. Wildlife sanctuaries and the national parks. After that we are going to say conservation resource. Conservation reserve and community reserve. Okay, the conservation reserve and the community reserve. After that is coastal protected areas. Coastal protected areas. So after the coastal protected areas, we are going to say sacred groves, sacred groves in India. Okay, and the last topic for discussion is the export prohibition. Prohibition of export items. Prohibition of export items. Okay, so all these are the things that we are going to discuss in today's class, that is in the national initiative. So in the national initiative we are going to discuss what are the protected areas, what is the wildlife sanctuaries and the national parks, conservation reserves and the community reserves, coastal protected areas, sacred groves, very important topics, and the prohibition of export items. All this plays a very important role in today's discussion, guys. So about the global initiative I am going to take in tomorrow's class. So about the global initiative, we are going to see is the biosphere reserve, the national biosphere reserve program. Okay, the world network of biosphere reserve. Okay, biodiversity hotspots. So where are the biodiversity hotspots in India? Okay, or the through the worldwide. After that, the last topic that we are going to see in the global network is that is the biodiversity distribution, guys. Okay, biodiversity distribution. So all things that we are going to discuss in tomorrow's class about the global initiative. So in class I am going to take on these topics. So let us start our discussion for the first topic, that is protected areas. Protected areas. So what do you mean by protected area? So protected area is the one which should be conserved, which is to be conserved. So if you see the adaptation of the national policy on wildlife conservation, adaptation of the national policy on wildlife conservation, that is in the year 1970, and the enactment of wildlife protection of 1972 gave a boost to strengthen the conservation of biodiversity. The adaptation of the national policy for wildlife conservation in the year 1972 and the enactment of wildlife protection in 1972 gave a boost or make as to help the conservation for the biodiversity. So after having all those things, few have strengthened, guys. That is, we have some project initiatives. Like we have project tiger, elephant, okay, and the crocodile breeding for management, the crocodile breeding and management initiative. So those made for the strengthening of the wildlife, conservation. So if we see in the early 1970s, we have the 5 national parks. And approx 60 wildlife sanctuaries. But today we are having 668 protected areas. 668 protected areas in total. So this has happened because of the things that we are having like this. Okay, and the project tiger and the project elephant. So this made to have that 668 protected area. So this covers approximately 4.9% of the area. Approximately 4.9% of the India, 4.9% of the India, guys. Okay, this is about the protected areas. So in India we are present having 668 protected areas, guys. Guys, done with this? So this is about the protected areas. So all these are protected areas only. But here we have more important still. That is Wildlife Protection Act, the national parks, conservation reserve or the community reserve, coastal protected areas that we are having of great importance, and the sacred good also plays a very important, that we should be importance of the the religious importance, guys. Those are okay. So this is about the protected areas. Now I'll take my discussion to the second topic, that is the wildlife sanctuaries or the national parks. What exactly wildlife sanctuaries are the national parks? Very important topic, guys. Very important topics, guys. So let us talk the second topic. So in second topic, if you see, guys, so second topic is of the wildlife sanctuary and the national parks. So what do you mean by wildlife sanctuary? What do you mean by wildlife sanctuary? Okay, I will take full form, guys. Okay, wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, so what do you mean by wildlife sanctuaries? So wildlife sanctuaries, so the state government, guys, the state government may, so state government through the Wildlife Protection Act, okay, state government through Wildlife Protection Act 1972, through Wildlife Protection Act 1972 make some certain places as the wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, wildlife sanctuaries. These certain places should be of the natural importance. And geomorphological importance, and having the ecosystem, good ecosystem. So this certain places which are having the national importance, that is the natural importance, geomorphological importance or the good ecosystem, then the state government may declare these areas as a wildlife sanctuaries under the Act Wildlife Protection Act 1972. 1972 guys. 1972. That is the importance of the Wildlife Protection Act. So with the same thing that the state government also, in addition with the wildlife protections, okay, in wildlife protection, in addition with the wildlife sanctuaries, the state government will also declare the same areas as the national parks. National parks. So with the same initiatives, they can also declare the wildlife sanctuaries, and in addition with this, they can declare the few with the national parks. Now, the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 doesn't distinguish the conservation of the wildlife sanctuaries and the national parks. Okay, guys. Wildlife Protection Act 1972 does not distinguish the conservation of the wildlife sanctuaries and the national parks. But we have this in our conservation, guys. We have this in our opinion. So if you see the distinction between the wildlife sanctuary and the national parks, I write over here wildlife sanctuaries and the national parks, guys. Okay. So guys, the national parks having the greater degree of protection. Greater degree of protection. Okay. Greater degree of protection than wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, so we have greater degree of protection than wildlife sanctuary. We have less protection in the wildlife sanctuaries, whereas we have greater degree of protection than wildlife sanctuaries in the national parks. Okay, and after that we have the grazing is allowed in the wildlife sanctuaries. Grazing is allowed, whereas here grazing is not allowed. Grazing is not allowed in the national parks. That's why we are having strict degree of protection. Okay, and if we see one more important, the national parks are the one which are meant for the all species. Okay, so conservation of all species conservation, whereas the wildlife sanctuaries are meant for a particular species conservation. Particular species conservation, guys. So that's why we are having the different issue. So like when so we have the Manas National Parks, the Manas Wildlife Sanctuaries, they are meant for the purpose. So the national parks is for the all species, whereas the wildlife sanctuary is the for a particular species of conservation. These are the difference between the wildlife sanctuaries and the national parks. Okay guys, done. So now I said that the state government may declare, but along with the state government, the center also has the right to declare, guys. The center also can declare the few areas when they feel that is of the national importance, geographical and good ecosystem. They can also declare that area as the wildlife sanctuaries or the national parks. The center can also declare when and where they did. Okay, now what is the initiative process? So what is the process that are going to declare by the state and wildlife sanctuary or the national parks that we are going to see? Okay, now the state government and the center both can declare. So now we will see the process of the done by the wildlife sanctuaries, the wildlife sanctuaries and the national parks by the state governments. So simple, guys. State government will done with only simple things. So state government first they go for initial notification. So the initial notification will be released by the state government, guys. So after going through all those things, they will publish in newspaper and all those things. After seeing this, the initial notification, they will after some time lapse and sets the boundary, they go for the final notification. Okay, they go for the final notification. So whatever the things that we are having with the initial notification will be satisfied by the people present over there, then it is final notification. That is, it requires no claims. So whatever the claims that we are having during the initial notification and between the final notification, it should be cleared. So after no notification, then they declare as the state, the wildlife sanctuary or the national parks. If there are any claims, then they can't do anything, guys. They can't do anything. Okay, so simply with the simple notifications, they will declare the state as the final or the initial, guys. Okay, so after this, so now we are going to type with the center. So how this center are going to take us? So the center are first going to fix the boundaries. So what are the boundaries that we are having? That is, they will limit the boundaries, limit area. So they limit the area of the wildlife sanctuaries or the national parks of the area. Okay, so after the limitation of the area, then only they can go for this distinguishing list. Okay, so and after this the boundaries. Okay, first of all they limit the area of that the one which need to conserve, guys. Okay, but and after that, if we want to, and after that they go for the settlements, guys. They go for the settlements. So okay, so the center will limit the boundary of the area to which to be conserved by the as the protected area. So after that, so if the any boundary will come across by the any water, okay, any water, that is any hydrosphere, then they will contact the chief hydrographer, guys. Chief hydrographer of the country, he will decide, okay, any water territory they will decide, okay. But in the year 1991, what happened, guys? In the year 1991, they have been amended the Wildlife Protection Act, Wildlife Protection 1972, and they want to include the any water territory also under and protected area. Okay, so not only this should be included in the territorial land, the any water land you should, the water land also should include as the one, should make it as the single protected area. They have made such amendment. By all this be done with the recommendation of the National Board for Wildlife. Okay, guys, National Board for Wildlife. So with the recommendation of the National Board for Wildlife only, they can go for these changes. Otherwise, they can't go, guys. Okay. So the National Board for Wildlife only can give the recommendation regarding this. Okay. So after the bond is completion, but guys, so see the one more thing, that is, so there is an area. Okay, the people are living over here. So people are living. So if you want to declare an area as the protected area, then what about these people? So we should go for the alternatives of these people. Then only we go for it. That is second statement is the settlement. Guys, we are dealing with the center, that is the boundaries extension. The second one is the settlement. So this settlement will be done, guys. So they will be provide an alternative. Such that they can go for having their fuel resources at any place. They settle because they are having the required conditions suitable for their habitant. Okay, so they can be given alternative, and the board will allot a collector, guys, an officer called collector. So he will go for making the arrangements. He will go for making the arrangements to these people who are present over there, guys. Okay, it is about the settlements. So the settlements will be taken place. So and after the settlements, now one more thing that we need to discuss, how we are going to do the that is we are going to allow the people in the protected areas. So in the protected areas, why we are going to allow the people? So we can't. So that is everyone can't go for the, guys. Everyone can't go for the in the protected area. So only few people can go to the protected area. So it will be decided by the chief wardener, guys. It will be decided by the chief wardener. Now we will see who has the permit. So permit, guys. Third topic is the permit. So permit who can go in the protected areas. So they will be decided by, so the one who can go protected is the civil servant. So the civil servant can go of the one who is doing the duty, and after that the one who is be allowed by the chief wardener. So there will be chief wardener, guys. Chief wardener. So the chief wardener will allow them to go, guys. So the chief wardener will allow for the different purposes to allow them. That is for scientific. Okay. After scientific, they will go for research. Okay. Photography. Tourism. Okay, so the chief wardener will make them to go through, guys. And after the chief warden, so anyone who is passing through the national highway for them also, they can allow to move into the permit, guys. Okay, so guys, with the entire, that is the entire control, management and the maintenance. I said that control. Okay, control, management and maintenance with the whom? Chief wardener guys. With the chief wardener guys. With the chief wardener guys. But the state government can make any recommendations if they want to make it as a protected area or the national parks. Okay, guys, this is about the wildlife sanctuaries and the national parks. Okay, now after this I will take my discussion with the conservation reserves. Conservation reserves. So what are the conservation reserves that we are going to discuss? So conservation reserves and the community reserves are we are having the same concept guys. We are having the same concept, that is conservation. Conservation and community. So conservation and community reserves. So if you see the conservation and the community reserves, so what are the conservation and the community reserves? So guys, conservation is of the very important. Why? Because in the conservation, so we have the wildlife sanctuaries and the national parks, but along with that we can make the few area as the conservation reserve. Conservation reserve. Okay, these have initiated, these are the outcomes of the amendment to the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. They are the outcomes of amendment of Wildlife Protection Act 1972 in the year 2003. So in the year 2003 they have amended, and they are the outcomes of the conservation of the community reserves. So what are the they have made that guys, community reserves are making that is protecting the forest, but they are not having any legal backing. So to make them the legal backing, that is the recognition, we have made this amendment in the year 2003, and the same with respect to conservation guys. So that is to provide the socio-economic development of the people. Anyhow, they are making to conserve, they are coming forward to conserve, but to have the provisions we have made with the conservation and the community areas. Okay, so these are with respect to a community guys. These are with respect to community. So this is the outcome of the 2003 amendment. Okay, this is outcome of the 2003 amendment. This is also same 2003 amendment. Okay, so and after that if you see the conservation reserves, so the state government which is owned, so the state government owned land, they may declare the area that is adjacent to national park and the wildlife sanctuaries, adjacent to national park or wildlife sanctuaries as the conserve area, as the conservation area, such that they can protect this area guys. Okay, so the people living there all will be given to contribute their conservation measures. Okay, their conservation for the development. So not only this, if they want to go for conservation, the few areas that which are not of the adjacent to them, they can conserve guys. Okay, but with respect to this, we have the community guys. Okay, we have the committee, that is the conservation reserves committee. Conservation reserves community we are having. Same with the community reserves. So community means a group of community living there will be having guys. They means if they feels that they want to conserve the area, they are aiming two targets. That is, it is aiming the socio-economic life of the people present over there, and then same way protection of the forest. So protection of forest means the both things are happening guys. That's why to give legal sanction to them, we have amended this and we have came with guys. Okay, if any individual or a group of people came together and form any community reserve, then the government is ready to form a conservation reserve. Okay, this we are having that is community reserve committee. Community reserve committee who is going to take the decisions of all those things. So without them and without these committees, they are going to change any bit of the community or the conservation reserves. Okay, this is of the very importance guys. Okay, so this is going to helpful a lot to the socio-economic of the country and to the protection of the forest. These are the about conservation and the community reserves. So the next topic is coastal protected areas. So what do you mean by coastal protected areas? So guys, coastal protected areas are the areas which is of the coastal regions, Okay, coastal protected areas. So we protect the coastal areas. We have the coastal areas, that is ours is the biggest coastal area guys. Okay, so the largest coastal land that we are having is the Gujarat. The second is the Andhra Pradesh. Okay, so in the coastal area that we are having, so we are going to conserve the coastal areas, but these should be conserved that actually here we are having that is marine protected area, guys. These places we call as the marine protected areas. This includes the intertidal or subtidal zones. So the intertidal or the subtidal zones means which is at the so guys, these are the tidal zones, guys. This I will take in the separate sessions if you need to discuss. Okay, these the protected areas is having the reason of the intertidal or the subtidal chains. So this marine protected area has classified into 3 categories. That is category 1, category 2, category 3 and category 3B. Okay, so what are the includes in category A? So in the category 1 it includes the national parks, wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, the national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and which is of the importance of the corals. That is the coastal protected areas also includes the coral reefs, mangroves and all those things, guys. We have corals, mangroves, estuaries. All this comes under the category 1. Okay, and if you see category 2, so category 2 includes the area of the category 2 includes that is area of the that is the subtidal zones, guys. Okay, means these are somewhat like out of these mangroves and the coral reefs. Out of the mangroves and the coral reefs, they included in the category 2. Okay, so in the okay, these are the one which are having also of the importance. So if you see category 3A, category 3A includes the beaches. Okay, and the category 2 also includes the islands, guys. Islands. So the islands and also it includes the terrain and the water. Islands. So category 3A includes the beaches. Okay, which is of the importance. So after category 3B, category 3B, it includes the evergreen forest. Evergreen forest are included in the category. Guys, if you see marine protected area, the marine protected area form approximately 4% of the biodiversity. 4% of the land. Okay, it forms about the 4% of the biodiversity land, guys. Okay, this is about the coastal protected areas. All these things are protected areas. Now the last topic that I am going to discuss for today's discussion, which is of very very important, is the sacred mangroves. What do you mean by sacred mangroves? Okay, so sacred mangroves are the mangroves. Sacred groves. So sacred groves are the one which is having of the religious importance. What do you mean by groves? Groves are the plants, guys. These are the plants, trees and all those things. Plants or trees. So they will be having some religious importance. If you people have seen in some areas of our locality, some trees are been worshipped by the few people. That is called sacred mangroves. So they from the ancestors, they have that religion. They are going to worship those things. Okay, these are present at different places. Okay, different places. So some are in the home, some are in the outsides, and the way of it worship also different. So if you classify this have been classified into few categories, guys. Okay, that is the first one is the traditional. Traditional means that is the village deity. It is the village deity, means it is the worship of the village deity. Guys. Okay, this is the village deity worship. That is about the traditional. So the villages will worship a plant tree that is present at the village. That is traditional. And after the traditional, we are having the temple, guys. So in the temple, so in the temples we go for the planting the few plants. Then we are going to worship. That is at the temple. At temple worship. And after that we are having at the burial grounds. Burial or cremation grounds. So at these places also we are having those type of classification, guys. Okay, that is the traditionals, that is temples and the burial cremation, guys. Okay, so this is about the classification of the sacred groves. Now we will see what are its benefits. So benefits, if you see, these plays a very important role in the biodiversity conservation. biodiversity conservation. So with this we have finally they have made, that is flora has been protected. So finally we are going to have biodiversity conservation at that place. And recharge of aquifers, recharge of aquifers. So the aquifers will be recharged, guys. Okay, the aquifers will be recharged at that place. They will be having the recharge of so we have the recharge aquifers. So the recharge of the aquifers means we are having the groundwater. So the groundwater will be recharged again and again, guys. And we have the one more is soil conservation. Soil conservation. So these are the few benefits of the sacred mangroves. If we see its distribution. If you see its distribution, we are having at the Western Ghats, Kerala and Karnataka. So not only these places, we are having at many places. These are the main places where we are having this distribution guys. These are the benefits, classification and the distribution guys. Now we have the threats with this. We have the threats. So why we are having threat? Because right now no one is practicing this case. Okay. So because of the foreign threats. If you see threats, these threats may vary from the region to region and from the group to the group. Okay. If you see the common traditions, present now we are not having that type of worship guys. Okay. Those days have gone. Now present they think that people as it is all other superstitions. Okay, superstitions. All these things they treating as the superstitions, and we are not having those worship right now, guys. Okay, and the second one is that is the change of these things. That is from those plants they are moving to temples. That is called as Sanskritization. Sanskritization means from traditional to temple. From traditional to temple guys. Okay, and after that we say urbanization. Guys, urbanization means you can understand that is the construction of the roads, railways, bridges, dams and all those things. Okay, so this made them to go further. Okay, now we are not having those much of relations. That is relations breakdown. So these are the few threats to the sacred groves. So importance, classification, benefits, distribution, threats. Very important guys. This is you can get for the main topic. Okay, so after the last topic for today's discussion is prohibited export items. So prohibition of export items. Guys, we are having the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So what do you mean by prohibition of export items? So guys, we are not having the license to prohibit that is to export the prohibited items. So whatever the items that have prohibited that list, we can't make them to export. That license we are not having in the country to anyone guys. So if you see like the example is the animals listed in the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 that we can't export, and after that the meat of the buffalo, the beef of the cow and oxes, all those things we can't go for the export guys. So it is prohibited. It is strictly prohibited. Guys, we are done with this the National Institutes of the Protected Area Networks, that is protected area, the wildlife sanctuaries and the national parks, conservation areas and the community areas, coastal protected areas, sacred groves in India, prohibition of export items guys. Okay, with this we are done with the half part of the protected area networks, that is the national initiative. We are left with second half, that is global initiatives that we are going to discuss in the next class guys. Okay, thank you one and all.